When every door closes and every person leaves, it doesn't feel like blessing. It feels like punishment. You wonder what you did wrong. You replay conversations in your mind at night. You question your worth. Pause for a moment. What if those closures weren't rejections at all? What if they were removals, not because you failed, but because loss isn't always subtraction? Sometimes it's redirection. Ibn Arabi taught that before Allah grants a great favor, He often clears the path first, not to harm you, to protect what's coming. Here are 7 hidden signs that Allah is preparing a major blessing for you. Sign 1. Sudden isolation. People you thought would stay forever begin to leave, not through conflict, not through betrayal, just distance. You reach out, and the warmth isn't there anymore. The conversations feel shallow. The connection feels forced. It feels personal. It feels like you're being abandoned for reasons you can't name. You wonder if you said something wrong, if you changed in ways that made you less lovable. But isolation before elevation is a pattern in the lives of those Allah is preparing. When He wants to give you something sacred, He often removes the noise first. Because what's coming requires clarity. It requires you to hear His voice without interference. The departure isn't about you being unworthy. It's about them not being aligned with where you're going. Some people are meant for certain chapters, not all of them. And when their season ends, trying to keep them only delays what's next. The isolation feels like loss, but it's actually protection. Sign 2. Doors close in ways you can't explain. You apply for the job, rejected. You plan the move, it falls through. You try to force something forward, it won't budge, and none of it makes sense. You did everything right. You prepared well. You prayed sincerely, and still the door stayed closed. This is one of the most painful signs, because it feels like divine silence, like your efforts don't matter, like you're being tested in ways others aren't. Most people miss this. The closed door isn't the punishment, it's the answer. Ibn Arabi said that sometimes Allah closes what you're chasing so you stop running toward the smaller thing. The door that won't open isn't the one you're meant to walk through. There's another one you haven't seen yet, one that's aligned with the version of you that's still forming, and it won't appear until you stop forcing the wrong one. Every closed door is a redirect, not a rejection. This isn't regression, it's the final threshold before recognition. When you look back years from now, you'll see why that door had to stay shut. You'll see what it protected you from, and you'll be grateful it didn't open when you wanted it to. Sign 3. Your prayers change. You used to ask for specific things, a person, a position, a place. You had a list, a timeline, a vision of how your life should unfold. But now your dua sounds different. You're not asking for outcomes anymore. You're asking for strength, for patience, for His pleasure, for the ability to trust when nothing makes sense. This shift isn't weakness, it's maturity. And it's one of the clearest signs that Allah is refining you for something greater. Because the blessing He's preparing isn't just material, it's spiritual, and it requires a heart that can hold it without breaking, a heart that won't worship the gift more than the giver. When your prayers become less about what you want and more about who you're becoming, you're being prepared. You're moving from asking for things to asking for transformation. This is the moment you stop chasing and begin surrendering, and that's when real change begins. Sign 4. Old wounds, resurface things you thought you healed from start appearing again. not as trauma, but as reminders. You feel the ache of past rejection, the sting of old failure, the weight of something you buried years ago, and you wonder why it's coming back now. Why can't the past just stay in the past? Stay with me here. Because Allah doesn't reopen wounds to hurt you. He reopens them to finish the healing. Before He gives you something new, He often asks you to release what you've been carrying, the grief you've been holding like a shield, the bitterness you've disguised as strength, the story you've been telling yourself about why you're not enough. Those things can't come with you into the next chapter. They're too heavy. They distort how you see yourself and others, so they rise to the surface one last time, not to defeat you, to be released. This is the hardest part of preparation, because it feels like going backward, but you're not regressing. You're crossing the last threshold before clarity arrives. This pain isn't return, it's completion. And once it's done, you'll move forward lighter than you've ever been. Sign 5. You stop needing validation. There's a moment when you realize you don't care as much anymore. Not in a bitter way, in a free way. You stop checking if people noticed. You stop explaining yourself to those who don't understand. You stop performing for approval. You stop shrinking to make others comfortable. This isn't apathy, it's alignment. When Allah is preparing you for something real, He removes your need for approval, because what's coming won't make sense to everyone. Some will question it, some will criticize it, some will feel threatened by it. And if you're still seeking validation, you'll hesitate, you'll shrink back, you'll negotiate with voices that were never meant to guide you. But when you stop needing permission, you become available for purpose. You stop asking, "Is this okay?" and start asking, "Is this true?" And that shift changes everything. This is one of the most liberating signs, because it means you're no longer living for an audience. You're living for Allah. And that's where real power lives. Sign 6. You start seeing patterns you couldn't see before you look back at your life, and suddenly things connect. The loss that broke you taught you mercy. The betrayal that crushed you taught you discernment. The delay that frustrated you kept you from something harmful. The rejection that felt like the end was actually a redirection toward something better. You begin to see the wisdom in what felt random. You see how every hard season prepared you for the next one, how every ending made space for a new beginning. This is one of the most sacred signs, because it means your spiritual sight is sharpening. Listen carefully. Ibn Arabi said that before Allah gives you something precious, He often gives you vision first. The ability to recognize His hand in your story. Not just in the good moments, in all of it. When you start seeing His mercy in your hardest seasons, you're being prepared to steward something sacred. You're learning to hold blessing without arrogance, to hold loss without bitterness, to see everything as part of a larger design. And that vision is what allows you to receive what's coming without losing yourself in it. Like soil that's been turned and softened, now ready for seed. Sign 7. Peace in the uncertainty. You don't know what's coming. You don't know when it will arrive. You don't know how it will unfold, but somehow you're okay. There's a stillness in your chest that wasn't there before. Not because your circumstances changed, but because your trust did. You're no longer frantically searching for answers. You're no longer demanding timelines. You're resting in the not knowing. This is the final sign, and it's the most important one, because the blessing Allah is preparing isn't just an external gift. It's an internal transformation. When you can stand in the unknown and feel held, you've crossed a threshold. You're no longer waiting anxiously. You're resting in His timing. And that rest is the foundation for everything He's about to give you. This peace doesn't mean you're passive. It means you're present. You're no longer living in the future, wishing things would hurry up. You're here, now, trusting. And that trust is what makes you ready. What this means, if you're experiencing these signs, you're not being forgotten. You're being chosen, not because you're perfect, but because Allah sees something in you that's worth refining. The isolation is intentional. It's creating space for depth you wouldn't develop in the noise. The closed doors are protective. They're keeping you from settling for less than what He has planned. The resurfacing wounds are final clearings. They're releasing what you no longer need to carry. The shift in your prayers is alignment. It's moving you from begging to trusting. The loss of need for validation is freedom. It's untying you from the opinions that would limit you. The patterns you're seeing are confirmation. They're showing you that nothing was wasted, and the peace you're feeling is preparation. It's the soil in which the blessing will take root. What's coming won't look like what you imagined. It will be better. Not because it's easier, but because it will be yours in a way nothing else has been. It will fit the shape of who you've become through all of this, and you'll know without doubt that it was worth the wait. If you're still here, you're ready for this. Ibn Arabi once said that the greatest blessings are given to those who've learned to hold them without grasping. If Allah is emptying your hands, it's not because you're unworthy. It's because what He's about to place in them is heavier, more sacred, more aligned with who you truly are. Let me say this again in a way that stays with you. Emptying isn't abandonment. It's preparation for what you're meant to carry. You've been carrying things that weren't meant for you, expectations that didn't fit, relationships that drained more than they filled, dreams that were borrowed from others. He's clearing all of that away, not to leave you empty, but to make room for what actually belongs to you. Trust the clearing, trust the closing, trust the silence. You're not being left behind. You're being led forward. And when the blessing arrives, you'll understand why every door had to close first, why every person had to leave, why you had to walk through the fire alone, because what's coming isn't just for you, it's through you, and it requires a version of you that could only be forged in the waiting. The emptying was never loss. It was making space. And now you're ready to receive what was always meant to reach you. Which of these 7 signs is showing up in your life right now? Sometimes naming it helps us see it clearly. Leave a number below, or the word that resonates most.